I know exactly what you have been told your whole life. You have been told to man up. You have been told to stop being so soft. You have been told that real men don't cry, real men don't overthink, real men don't second-guess themselves. You have been told, probably more times than you can count, that you are too sensitive for a guy. Maybe someone even called you feminine. Maybe someone suggested you were weak. And the worst part? You have probably spent years trying to fix yourself. Years trying to be tougher, louder, more aggressive. Years apologizing for the way you are naturally wired. But I am here today to tell you that the diagnosis you've been given is wrong. There is nothing wrong with you. You are not weak, and you are certainly not defective. You are not a broken version of a man. You are what psychologists call a non-traditional masculine archetype. But I prefer a different term. You are an evolved man. While other men are running on emotional software that was installed 10,000 years ago, designed for a world of physical threats and simple survival, your operating system has upgraded. You are processing the actual complexity of modern life. Your brain is not stuck in caveman mode. And today, we're going to look at the psychology and neuroscience that proves your way of being a man is not a defect. It is an evolutionary adaptation that modern society desperately needs. Because here's what nobody tells you. The version of masculinity you've been measured against, it is not the only version. It is not even the best version. It is just the loudest version. To understand yourself, we have to look at your wiring. Because this isn't just about personality or how you were raised. This is biology, meeting culture. Research shows that your brain processes masculine identity and emotional information differently than what the traditional alpha male blueprint would suggest. And here's the problem. If you don't understand this difference, you will spend your entire life thinking you are failing at something you were never designed to do in the first place. Think of masculinity like an operating system. Most men are running Masculinity 1.0. It's the factory settings, installed 10,000 years ago. It's simple. It's aggressive. It gets the survival job done without asking too many questions about feelings or complexity. It worked perfectly for hunting mammoths and defending territory. But your system is running Masculinity 2.0. And neuroscience is beginning to understand what this upgrade actually means. The problem is, everyone is still judging you by the standards of version 1.0. They are looking at your advanced system and calling it broken because it doesn't look like Masculinity 1.0. First, your brain doesn't suppress emotional data. Neuroscientists have found that traditionally masculine men show reduced activity in brain regions associated with emotional processing, not because they don't feel emotions, but because they've learned to suppress the signal. It's like turning down the volume on a radio station. The signal is still there, but they've trained themselves not to hear it. Most men are taught from childhood to treat emotions like spam mail. Delete before reading. Don't open it. Don't process it. Just get rid of it as fast as possible. But your brain treats emotions as essential data. You process the emotional subtext of conversations. You pick up on the tension in the room that nobody is talking about. You notice the disappointment behind someone's smile. You feel the shift in energy when something is wrong, even when everyone is pretending everything is fine. This is why you might feel completely exhausted after social situations where technically nothing happened. Other men walk away fine. You walk away drained. And you've probably beaten yourself up for this. You've probably thought, why can't I just let things go like other guys? Why do I have to feel everything so deeply? But here's the flip. This is also why you build deeper relationships. This is why people trust you with things they would never tell the typical guy. This is why you make more thoughtful decisions. This is why you can navigate complex social situations that leave other men completely confused and lost. While they're wondering why their marriage fell apart or why their kids don't talk to them, you saw the problems coming months ago. You're not oversensitive. You're actually reading the data that everyone else is ignoring. Second, your definition of threat has evolved. For most of human history, being a man meant one thing: physical dominance. Threats were simple. a predator trying to kill you, a rival trying to take your resources, starvation, cold, pain, death. The male brain was wired to respond to these threats with one strategy: fight or run. And most men today are still operating with this same threat detection system. Their stress response only activates for physical danger. But for you, you don't just react to physical threats, you react to psychological threats. Betrayal, disconnection, meaninglessness, inauthenticity. When someone lies to you, your body responds like you're under attack. When you're forced to pretend to be someone you are not, your stress hormones spike. When you're in a job that feels pointless, your nervous system treats it like a survival threat. And other men look at you like you're crazy. They say, "Why are you so stressed? Nothing bad is happening." But you are not imagining it. Your stress response system is calibrated to the actual dangers of modern life, not saber-toothed tigers. You are a smoke detector that's been upgraded to detect carbon monoxide. The other detectors keep telling you there's no fire, and they're right, there is no fire. But you're sensing a different kind of danger they literally cannot perceive. And that danger is real. It's just invisible to their outdated sensors. And third, this leads to the most misunderstood feature of your psychology: identity flexibility. Psychologists call this psychological androgy, or integrated masculine identity. And before you react to that term, let me explain what it actually means. In a world that demands you pick a lane and stay in it, you might feel like you're failing at being consistent. You might beat yourself up for being too soft with your kids, but too aggressive at work. For enjoying things that are coded as feminine, like art or deep conversations, while also loving things coded as masculine, like building things or competition. You might feel like you're all over the place, like you can't figure out who you're supposed to be as a man. But here is the science. You are not confused, you are integrated. While other men are performing a rigid masculine script that never changes regardless of the situation, your brain is engaging in what psychologists call contextual authenticity. You are unconsciously adjusting your behavior to what the situation actually needs. You are reading emotional cues. You are accessing the full range of human traits rather than just the approved masculine ones. When your child needs comfort, you don't shut down because that's not manly, you comfort them. When a situation needs assertiveness, you don't avoid it because you're worried about being aggressive, you step up. You aren't inconsistent because you're weak, you're flexible because your identity is complex enough to handle modern life. That is not confusion. That is psychological sophistication. That is what it actually takes to be a fully functional man in the 21st century.
Now you might be asking, if this makes life so hard, why would this version of masculinity even exist? This is the most important part. If being emotionally aware was weakness in men, evolution would have eliminated it thousands of years ago. But it didn't. It kept it. Why? Because the tribe needed different kinds of men. Yes, the tribe needed the aggressive protectors, the men who could fight without hesitation, hunt without questioning, act without feeling. They were essential for immediate survival. They could charge into battle. They could kill without remorse. They could make split-second decisions without being paralyzed by empathy. But here's what nobody talks about. A tribe of only aggressive warriors would collapse within a generation. They would start wars they couldn't win because they never stopped to think about consequences. They would destroy alliances because they couldn't read social dynamics. They would raise sons who only knew violence and had no idea how to build anything that lasted. The tribe needed diplomat warriors, healer warriors, wisdom keepers. That is you. You were the one who prevented unnecessary conflicts by reading the room and finding compromise before blood was spilled. You were the one who could mentor the next generation because you understood that strength includes vulnerability, that teaching a boy to be a man means showing him the full range of what that means. You were the one who held the community together when brute force would have torn it apart. Your inadequate masculinity is actually a sophisticated social intelligence system, and the evidence is everywhere in history. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most powerful men in the ancient world, spent his time writing about philosophy and emotional regulation. Jesus, regardless of your religious beliefs, is worshipped by billions as the ultimate example of manhood, and his defining traits were compassion, emotional depth, and nonviolence. Mr. Rogers, a man who countless people credit with teaching them what healthy masculinity looks like, wore cardigans and talked about feelings on television. These men weren't failures at masculinity. They were different expressions of it, and they changed the world in ways that pure aggression never could. Society today worships a cartoon version of masculinity. It is loud, emotionally numb, and one-dimensional. It is built for men who never question the script, who never look inward, who mistake suppression for strength. That is why you feel like you don't measure up, but do not mistake feeling different for being defective. The measuring stick itself is broken. I know that carrying this kind of consciousness as a man comes with a cost. Because you process masculinity as something complex rather than automatic, you face constant self-doubt. Every decision becomes a referendum on whether you're man enough. Should you speak up in that meeting, or will you sound too soft? Should you cry at your father's funeral, or will people think less of you? Should you admit you're struggling, or will that confirm everyone's suspicions that you're weak? Other men don't seem to wrestle with these questions. They just do things. But you're constantly calculating, constantly aware of how your actions will be judged against an impossible standard. And when you hit your breaking point, when you suddenly feel like an imposter in male spaces, when you avoid other men because you don't speak their language, when you shut down because you're exhausted from performing a version of yourself that doesn't feel real, that is not you being broken. That is your system overloaded by constant identity performance. That is what happens when you spend years trying to run software that was never designed for your hardware. But psychology has a powerful framework for this. Most men are like dandelions. They are resilient to identity questions. They can fit into any male space, a construction site, a locker room, a sports bar, a boardroom. They feel completely at home. They don't question what it means to be a man. They don't lie awake at night wondering if they're doing it right. They just are. They thrive regardless of the masculine environment. Drop them anywhere and they'll survive. But you are an orchid. If you try to force yourself into toxic masculine spaces, into environments that demand emotional suppression and constant displays of aggression, into groups where vulnerability is treated as contamination, you will wither. You will feel like you're failing at something everyone else finds easy. You'll watch other men thrive in places that make you feel like you're slowly dying inside. And for years, you've probably blamed yourself for not being a dandelion, for not finding the traditional man thing as natural as other guys seem to. You've watched them bond on things that bore you or make you uncomfortable. You've watched them turn off their emotions like flipping a switch while you can't figure out where your switch is. You've probably thought, what is wrong with me? Why can't I just be normal? But the research shows something remarkable called differential susceptibility. It means that people who struggle more in bad environments don't just do slightly better in good environments, they dramatically outperform everyone else. When you place yourself in environments that value emotional intelligence, complexity, and authentic connection, with the right partner who doesn't need you to perform masculinity, with the right work that uses your actual strengths, with the right community that doesn't punish you for being thoughtful, you don't just survive as a man. You become the kind of man that others look to for wisdom, depth, and genuine strength. The kind of strength that doesn't need to prove itself. The kind of strength that can hold space for other people's pain. The kind of strength that builds things that last. And the dandelion men, for all their adaptability, for all their ease in traditional spaces, can never quite access this. They can survive anywhere, but they bloom the same everywhere. You need specific conditions, but when you find them, you bloom in ways they cannot. You don't need to become more traditionally masculine. You need to build a life that honors your kind of masculinity. And when you do this, you don't just catch up to the real men, you surpass them in the ways that actually matter in the 21st century. So here is my prescription for you. Stop trying to install the traditional masculine program. You cannot fundamentally change your wiring, and you shouldn't want to. The world has enough emotionally disconnected men. We don't need you to become harder, colder, or more aggressive. We need you to be exactly the kind of man you are. But you must protect your masculine identity. Stop apologizing for your depth. Find male friends who don't require you to perform. Choose partners who celebrate rather than tolerate your emotional range. Build a life around work that values thinking over posturing. And the next time someone questions whether you're a real man, take a breath, smile internally, and remember the truth. You do not have defective masculinity. You're just running an upgraded operating system in a world still attached to the factory settings. And in a world facing a crisis of disconnected, emotionally stunted masculinity, your ability to feel, connect, and integrate complexity is not a weakness. It is the very thing that makes you not just a man, but a complete human being. And because you possess this evolved masculine identity, you might have noticed something else about yourself. You might be the guy who has more female friends than male friends. You might avoid traditionally masculine spaces like sports bars or aggressive competitive environments. You might feel more comfortable in one-on-one conversations than in groups of guys. To the outside world, you might look like you're avoiding guy stuff, like you're not interested in being around other men. But psychology suggests that this pattern isn't weakness or confusion. It might be a sign of something called secure masculine identity. You don't need constant validation from other men to know who you are. You're not performing for an audience. You're just being. If you want to know whether your relationship with other men is a sign of confidence or hidden shame, click on this video right here. I break down the psychology of male friendships and why quality over quantity might be the marker of evolved masculinity. I'll see you over there.